Hi, my name is Irene and welcome to Theo and Olaf. With me is Olaf, our Samoyed puppy who is now a little over 9 months. We want to give you an update on how he's doing at the 9-month mark. If you missed our 8-month-old update, you can check it out here. You guys really love these videos, and in terms of how Olaf is doing, health-wise, he's more or less the same. He is now a little under 60 pounds at about 58 pounds to be exact. We think his weight is probably topping off more or less, but he's still pretty heavy for us to carry. The only update for us health-wise is that his paws are getting, or his paw pads are getting a little bit dry due to probably the summer heat. His fur around his paw pads are a little bit pink. We showed some pictures to the vet who thinks it might be some type of athlete's foot for dogs. So he has some medicated wipes and some topical spray to treat that. So hopefully that goes away soon, and we've been applying some balm on his paw pads as well. The major update that we have for you is that we're now doing some one-on-one training for Olaf, and we've seen a lot of progress in that area. Before I dive into specifics of what we've been doing with Olaf in terms of his training, we wanted to give some context in terms of how we have been training him ever since the beginning. We think it's super helpful just to provide more context and transparency into how we've been doing it, especially since there's so much different schools of thoughts in terms of how to train your dog. There's the school of thought where positive reinforcement only is definitely the way to go. And then there's more of a balanced training sort of approach where aversion techniques could be appropriate. So there's a lot of polarization on the issue. We want to be very transparent in terms of how we've been doing things. So hopefully you find it useful. Even from the very beginning, figuring out what type of training method to do with Olaf was kind of difficult to figure out, to be honest. On the internet, there's a lot of positive only reinforcement type of recommendations. So if you watch videos from Zach George, from Kiko Pup, you'll see a lot of emphasis on using purely rewards, mainly treats, to get the behavior that your pup wants. The idea is that the minute or the very second your pup does the good behavior, you want to reward it immediately, and that way they know that is the good behavior they always should be doing. And the idea also is that you want to be in control of the environment so that they exhibit the behavior that you want your pup to do. Our breeder also gave us some new puppy advice, and our breeder recommended some DVDs from a trainer called Don Sullivan. I think they're pretty old, just given the pixelation in the videos. But basically, with Don Sullivan's training, he recommends using no treats. He has a prong-like collar, which we actually, well, that's not my prong-like collar, a prong-like collar here. As you can see, there's some spikiness that goes around the pup's neck. The idea is that you would pull on it, kind of like a martingale or like a prong collar, so that it's a form of correction. Olaf was used to this collar for a bit, so he thinks we're probably going to walk for now, but we're not going on a walk, we're just doing a little demo. Olaf, can you sit? Sit.
What's it made out of?
It's made out of plastic, is that right? I don't even know anymore, but anyway, Olaf, sit. Okay, put this away. I'll put this away. Olaf, come back. Come back. Come here. Good boy. Olaf, sit. Sit. Down. Good boy. But yes, our breeder recommended these videos from Don Sullivan. And with no treats, Don Sullivan recommends doing some form of respect training or really showing yourself as the alpha, so to speak. And there's an emphasis on correction. So whenever your pup is going crazy or just not having good leash manners, the idea is that you would like pull on the leash to show the correction. So we actually approached our breeder to talk about positive only reinforcement because we were getting really conflicting messages. She was telling us to do more of a alpha-like type of respect training, whereas on the internet you hear a lot of talk about positive only reinforcement being the most humane thing to do. the whole alpha leader type of paradigm is outdated and is pretty cruel to dogs. And she basically told us that, it's Samoyeds do need a lot of praise and definitely positive reinforcement with things like treats, but they also need a strong leader and structure. And if they don't have that, they can be a bit unruly, be inconsistent in terms of how they behave. So at the end of the day, we did listen to the breeder and got the DVD and the collar from Don Sullivan. I think in the end, we kind of just met in the middle with almost what you would call a balanced training approach, where yes, we would reward for positive behavior, but if there was any bad behavior that Olaf was exhibiting, we would want to correct it immediately to show that it was not appropriate. So ultimately, we found that the different styles of training have worked well in different areas. Well, so when it comes to learning new commands like sit, down, stay, positive reinforcement really helps. Olaf is very motivated using treats to learn how to do those different things, so that definitely helped. In one area where we could have done more positive reinforcement was probably with crate training. Crate training was a huge struggle for us. Olaf would constantly bark in his crate for at least half an hour every night, sometimes longer, and that lasted for about a good month. So that was a huge struggle for us. Some things we tried with this crate training was trying to go up next to him at night, trying to be of comfort, to make him feel like there's some presence around him, but he would completely ignore us and keep barking anyway. So then we're like, okay, so that didn't work, so let's get a little bit tougher on him. At one point we got the muzzle and tried to put it on him, but I think that actually just stressed him out some more. That didn't really help. And ultimately we heard some tip about using a ice water bottle. So we actually got some ice packs, as you probably have seen in our other videos. And that actually helped tremendously. That helped calm Olaf immediately. Like, it never occurred to us that, oh, maybe he's just really hot and just wants a cooler environment to sleep in. So that's one area where I think we could have actually done better. Instead of just punishing immediately with something like the muzzle, we could have thought better about, oh, maybe there's something in the environment we could have changed. Where positive reinforcement wasn't working as well for us was in changing existing bad behavior. So Olaf has always been a pretty reactive puppy, especially outside. When he was little, he would just bark outside for like no apparent reason. Even there were no people or dogs around, he would just keep barking. It was just a big nuisance. It was really difficult to take him out in public, and especially in puppy class. I think many of you other Sammy owners can relate, where Olaf was the loudest, barkiest pup in class, would bark through the entire class. I mean, ultimately it got better over time, but it was a bit pain because we would have to take him towards the back of the class so he wouldn't be such a big interrupter, or we would take him out altogether just so that he could completely de-stress a little. So the use of treats was just not working in that case. He would just be so distracted. The other distractors were more of a reinforcement for him. We also did try to use things like a bark collar. We got a vibration collar where if he started barking, it would sense it, and then it would have a vibration that would tell him, hey, like, it basically, the point was to just throw him off a little bit. It was not meant to shock him or anything like that. But even on the highest setting, I think he learned to just ignore it altogether. So that was a huge pain in the butt. Leash walking, having good leash manners was also a huge struggle for us. We did get some leeway with using high value treats like bananas. He loves bananas. So we were able to eventually take him through a crowded environment and use a banana to stop him from being so agitated or worked up with people around him. But it doesn't work all the time, and it's just really hard to just find that right treat, to always find that right thing to get his attention on us. Ultimately, the thing that was the last straw for us was a recent trip to Santa Cruz for July 4th. We had the day off, so we were like, okay, let's take a nice family trip to the beach, to the dog beach in particular. And even before we got to the beach, right when we got out of the car, Olaf was already pretty antsy. It was a new environment, lots of new exciting scent. So we took him out for a little run, made him like sniff around for a bit. But the minute he saw people, and especially dogs coming out of the beach, he was so worked up, kept pulling, and it was just a mess. And he was so worked up that we just had to pull him aside, lay him down at the stairwell that led to the beach. And Eric was pretty frustrated. Throughout the time of having Olaf has actually been a big stressor in a relationship because we even have different styles when it comes to training. I'm more of the side of, okay, let's do a little bit more positive reinforcement. Let's really capture good behavior. And I think Eric is more on the side of, hey, let's do more respect training, make sure that Olaf respects us, not necessarily as alphas per se, but just as leaders for Olaf. And he doesn't like only using treats because he doesn't want Olaf to only listen when there's treats involved. So I think there's some, Olaf, what are you doing? Your nails are so long. There's definitely some truth to both sides. But for us, we definitely felt that with all the leash pulling, with all the barking, we needed some third party to help us. And that's when you decide to do one-on-one training. After researching a few training places in the Bay Area, we decided to go with a place called Koru K9. They have really great reviews on Yelp, and they're also known as the last ditch trainers. A lot of people go to Koru K9 when they've exhausted all their attempts to correct their pups' bad behaviors. Here you go. So Koru K9 uses both treats and aversion techniques, namely with a prong and an e-collar. And most people have a pretty negative connotation of prong collars. Even I did. I thought prong collars were for aggressive dogs. So I always thought if you see a dog on a prong collar, you better watch out because it probably has some kind of mean streak. What I didn't realize was that prong collars are actually really great at helping with leash pulling. So the prong collar was one of the things that our trainer from Koru K9 introduced us to. You can see it here. And Olaf's gonna think we're going for a walk, but we're not. As you can see, it's kind of similar to the prong light collar I showed you. This is an actual prong collar. You can see there's some like spiky things to it. Again, the idea is if Olaf is pulling hard on the leash, you do a little pop, pop to show him, hey, like that is not what we want you to do. So this is one of the tools that our trainer introduced us to use. And within the first session, okay, he really thinks we're going for a walk. I'm gonna put this away. Olaf, we'll go on a walk later. And within the first session, the prong collar really helped in leash walking. We didn't even have to pull on it really hard. We just did the little pop pop whenever his head was popping further than he should. And he kind of got the idea that, hey, like heel means stay out our side and don't go too far ahead. Olaf, sit please. Sit. Where's your thing? Where's his green thing? Oh, it's over there. Okay, hold on. Hold on, Olaf. Sit. Hold on. Olaf, sit. Nope, right here. Sit. Good boy. Down. Okay. Within the first session of using the prong collar, Olaf was definitely walking a lot better. No more leash pulling within the first half hour. It was amazing. I think Eric was in complete shock that this was even happening. So we were pretty impressed and we thought there was hope for Olaf. Another thing to note is that we never actually have used a harness just because we've heard that it doesn't actually help with to stop the desire to pull. So we never used a harness. I know some people use a front clip harness as a way to stop the dog from pulling, but if you use it too much over time, it can affect the dog's gait/shoulder. So we always have been wary of using the harness for those reasons. The other equipment that our trainer introduced us to is the e-collar, which is right here. The E in the name actually stands for educational collar, not electric. So it's not actually a shock to Olaf. And there's two main modes to it. It comes with a control, or a little controller here. Two modes. One is for vibration, and the other is for a stim, or stimulation, which essentially is it feels like a muscle contraction, or a little tingle. And again, there are different modes in which you would set it. So our trainer actually made us test it out on ourselves, so we know that what we're giving to our dog, right? So obviously you don't want to overcorrect your dog for something in which he could have been corrected at a lower level. So yeah, she made us test it out by putting it against our palm and by putting it on ourselves. So usually around like a 10 or a 15 is when we would start to feel something. But the idea is that this is another collar that would go under his prong collar. And if he's being, say, really barky towards another dog, you would tap, tap, mostly to get his attention, to see if he can snap out of it. The idea isn't to make him to yelp from the pain, but it's more so to get his focus back on us. So this has also been really great at working on the other behaviors aside from just leash pulling. So whenever he gets way too distracted with another dog, barking or whining, we use this, and it's been great. I would say there's been a lot of progress. The only downside to this is that sometimes it doesn't pair as we think it would, or sometimes because Olaf has so much fur, we had to adjust his fur a bit to make sure that the contact points reach close enough to his skin. But overall, having the prong collar and the E collar has really helped with our training. So we only had 2 sessions for our trainer so far. First session was working on leash pulling, and the second session was working on desensitization to other dogs. So we actually went to the dog park, and Olaf was pretty crazy. The minute we got out of the car, started barking. We took him further away from the actual dog park. He was still barking. Our trainer actually bumped it up to, what was it, like an 80 or something, and he was still going crazy. So at that point, she actually said, hey, like, would you guys consider doing a board and train? And that is where you send your dog to one of the trainers' home. They train your dog for at least 3 weeks. Some places do it for even more. And then they give you your dog back, and then you have some follow-up sessions to make sure you're also training your dog correctly. The other thing she said was, hey, like, your dog is very anxious around other dogs. Maybe you should try some CBD. I actually talked to our vet about it. He actually recommended not doing CBD. And there's actual medication for situational anxiety. So that's something we're perhaps considering. We have been doing more practice at the dog park by getting Olaf more desensitized to dogs. We don't actually take him into the dog park, but from afar, we just have our own little family picnic. We give Olaf his food when he's finally relaxed. But we've seen a lot of progress with Olaf. He definitely is not perfect when it comes to his desensitization to other dogs, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. So for all of you who are struggling with certain things that you're training with your pup, maybe it is reactivity to other people or dogs or leash manners, I would highly recommend seeing a trainer. There's no shame in just saying, hey, like, this is really hard. I've exhausted all my methods. Let's get some help. I think even just a few sessions would be very helpful. And especially if, like us, there's disagreement in terms of what your training style should be within your household, it's great to have a third person mediate that and be the final say in that. So I would say just having this one-on-one training has helped Olaf a lot. It's helped the harmony within our household a lot too. So I would highly recommend that. We can actually take him to some public places now. I've taken him out to coffee shops, and he's generally been pretty calm, staying in place down outside. We even had a dinner at a restaurant the other night, and Olaf was pretty well behaved, no whining or barking. Granted, he did get a good amount of exercise beforehand, but we were pretty pleased. So overall, we're very pleased with the progress that Olaf has made so far. He has such a sense of calm that we haven't noticed before. His leash walking is so much better. He still pulls a little bit, but now it's a lot more manageable, and he stays by our side for the most part. When it comes to reacting to other dogs and humans, it's gotten a lot better too. He can just sit and for the most part just let dogs pass by. Some dogs have also gotten close to him and he stays pretty calm. For the most part, we don't have to use the e-collar too much for correction. We still do need to use it from time to time, but the amount of calmness and just patience in general that he's shown has been really, really tremendous. So we're very proud of you, Olaf, and we can't wait to see how his training progresses. So that's our 9-month-old update. We know it was a longer update, but hopefully you found that information helpful for you. And we would love to hear how your training has been, especially if you have a Sammy yourself. Have you been using positive only reinforcement? Have you been using balanced training? We would love to hear what your approach has been. We know that every pup is different, so we know that different techniques could work better for different pups. So we would love to hear your story. So if you like this content, as always, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching.